Welcome to Recovery Reach by Recovery.com, where we talk about the business of recovery because the more people you reach, the more people you can help. Today on the podcast, Google's hungry and EEAT is what's on the menu. Eric Sachs, CEO of Sachs Marketing Group, serves up real talk on why your treatment center needs more than a pretty homepage to rank. Let's get into it. Eric, let's dive into it. Let's just quickly go over who are you? What company do you work at? What's your mission at that company?
Yeah, so I'm Eric Sachs, the founder and CEO at Sachs Marketing Group. We're a digital marketing agency, full service digital agency, handling everything from SEO, social, web design, and various other ancillary digital marketing services. I've been around 14 and a half years and kind of specialize in the treatment center marketing space. So the vast majority of our clients are in this industry, but we do have plumbers and electricians and attorneys and various other markets that we service as well.
Yeah. What brought you to that particular niche of addiction treatment centers?
I am 14 and a half years clean and sober myself. And so that's how this whole thing started. I ended up in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous after having been through a detox. I met a guy who was complaining that he had a sober living facility and he was going to have to file bankruptcy because no one could find his website. Once the dust sort of settled and the fog kind of cleared, I told him I could help him, that I had a background in SEO and web design, and I think I could help him turn his business around. And he said, great, how much? And I said, I don't know, I had no idea. I wasn't trying to open a business. I was just surviving. I was trying to get my wife to not leave me. We were hiding our car from the repo man and like things were bad. And so he became my first client. So I started doing his thing, mostly at night because I was looking for jobs during the day. And eventually his phone started ringing and he avoided bankruptcy. And he was so excited that he told a friend of his about what I was doing for him. And that friend of his became my second client. And then by the time I had 3 or 4 clients, I thought, maybe I can just do this, instead of applying for jobs that weren't hiring anyway. So I put an ad in Craigslist for an assistant because I was kind of busy at the time, and she hired my first employee. And so fast forward now 14 and a half years later, that first sober living guy is still my client today.
Yeah.
And the second client that he introduced me to is still with us today. And that's how this whole thing started. I had a background in the drug and alcohol treatment space, so I kind of knew it from that perspective. And then I knew the SEO and the web design piece. And so it was sort of I guess, match made in heaven kind of.
Yeah.
And come to find out, treatment centers really like to work with guys like me that, know the lingo and have been there, done that. And as opposed to treatment center or, agencies that maybe don't have a background in treatment that, can say the wrong thing. So we've sort of carved out a niche in that industry. And it's great because not only has it provided an amazing opportunity for us to grow the business, and I have 23 employees now, and
Wow.
It's a very successful business that I created kind of without really realizing it was happening. You're also helping people ultimately at the end of the day, helping people find good treatment options and getting their lives turned around, much the way my life got turned around. And
Right.
It's been an amazing ride. So, a lot of what I learned in the rooms about being a better person, about, my personal experience was 12-step. It's not everyone's experience, but, I did my inventory. I made my amends. I did all the stuff I was supposed to do. And as I was doing that, my company was forming. And so a lot of what I was becoming as a sober man, husband, father, became employer. That culture of being of service, of, not taking advantage of people, of keeping your side of the street clean, of making an amends when you do wrong, became part of our company culture, and has really led to our success, honestly, at the end of the day. Yeah.
one thing with your background I find interesting is you were probably doing some marketing for a different industry, and even today you still have clients from different industries. So
Yeah.
taking that kind of outside in view, do you think that the addiction treatment center marketing caliber is high? Do you find a lot of things people are doing wrong, or they're just best practices people aren't following more in this industry than other industries, or are folks generally doing all right?
No, I would say it's super unique because people's lives are at stake at the end of the day, and Google knows that. And when we're talking about marketing, my area of purview is digital, right? So I think Google, I think Meta, and there's this concept. There's a lot of acronyms in marketing. One of them is YMYL, which I don't know if you may have heard of. Your money or your life. All treatment centers and treatment center websites fall in that category, right? Of your money or your life, which is essentially purporting yourself as helping people in exchange for dollars, really. And if you're in that category, Google takes a special look at you and wants to make sure that you're doing good work, that you do have expertise, that you are an authority, that you are to be trusted, and that you're not simply profiteering off the misery of others. And so it is a bit of a higher caliber of marketing that has to be done in order to be seen as an authority in the industry. So there's a lot of work to be done from an SEO perspective and various other things that we do to build that topical authority. And it's, you kind of got to know what you're doing a little bit.
Yeah. So there's a lot more expectations from Google
Yeah,
with companies in this industry
for
because
sure.
of their your money, your life philosophy. So we're
Yeah.
going to talk all about kind of how you convince Google that you know your stuff and that you can be trusted. We're going to talk about topical authority. We're going to talk about EEAT, and we're going to have you, Eric, go through what that acronym means. But let's start with kind of topical authority. Let's start there. Why is that important? What's at stake when a company is ignoring it with their digital presence?
Well, just I think from a visibility perspective, in terms of what we could call SERPs or search engine results, right? Google ranks websites that demonstrate that. Google ranks websites that are experts on the subject matter. Google doesn't want anyone to really use their platform again to I call it profiteering, but like to take advantage of people. Some time ago, Google on their ad platform stopped allowing treatment centers to advertise. For a short period of time, they said no more. And that's right around the time when they then partnered with LegitScript, right? So now, as a treatment center, if you want to pay dollars to advertise in Google, you have to go through some hoops and become certified with this third-party vetting entity called LegitScript to make sure that, or at least to try to ensure that you're doing things the right way. And then Meta jumped on the bandwagon, and now if you want to run ads untethered by their policies in both Google and Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram, then and YouTube, you have to become certified.
In legit scripts, is it divisive at all? What does the industry think about legit scripts?
Yeah, I think there's some conspiracy theories that
Yeah.
Google owns LegitScript, and I don't really know the answer. Maybe they do. Maybe they have a financial stake. They do things like they want to make sure you're being transparent. LegitScript requires that your domain not be privately registered. You can't hide behind private registrar. You have to show that this domain actually belongs to this treatment center, and this is the contact information, this is the address, this is the phone number. And so these are some of the hoops that LegitScript requires you to jump through to achieve their certification.
Yeah, it's good. The watchdogs.
Yeah.
So topical authority. Kind of tell me what would be the wrong way in 2025 to launch a website for an addiction treatment center, and what would be the right way with topical authority?
Uh,
What would that mean?
it's a tough question. It's much easier to talk about the right way to do it. The wrong way is just not to do things, right? There's kind of best practices and things you want to do to purport to the world and to Google that you're an authority. And the wrong way is to not do those things. I guess one of the wrong ways would be to do what I just described, right? Which is to kind of BS your way through it. It's kind of hard to BS your way through topical authority, especially, I mean, Google's pretty smart, right? And so by creating these fake entities and then awarding your treatment center every year from a fake entity, that would be an example of the wrong way of doing things. I guess another wrong way of doing things would be just to, fill your website with nothing but AI generated content that there's no expert behind, no real thought had to go into it. It's sort of just evergreen, not very exciting, not very informative or educational content that's being put out by an AI engine. And
Well, and even just with topical authority, let's go at a foundational level. What is it?
it's sort of proving that you're doing a good job, right? Or that you're capable. That if people come to you with addiction, with alcoholism, with mental health issues, that you're actually going to help them. And so this concept of EEAT and topical authority is just sort of proving to the world, if you will, that you're capable of helping them.
Does it mean that you need to have a blog that has 150 posts? Or can you achieve these things with a small website? Is it somewhere in the middle?
You could get away with fewer posts, but it's the posts themselves that matter, and the posts that should be sort of either authored by or at least approved by someone, typically with some consonants after their name, right? Someone like an MD or a PhD or a PsyD or even an MFT or somebody that has some consonants after their name that kind of show to show that this is either authored by or approved by someone who knows what they're talking about, right? As opposed to just hiring a copywriter. So you could have fewer blog posts if they're quality posts that are informative, educational. There's more to it, there's content pillars and internal linking and various other things that we can get into on a more granular level. But is the question kind of like, if you're an underfunded treatment center, can you get away without like this massive website and a ton of marketing?
We're talking about topical authority and kind of what it takes to actually implement topical authority and EEAT. I think you can approach it from a location page and a blog page. So curious what you would recommend for a location page or a home page or one of the main pages on a site.
On a home page, one of the things that should be on a home page are various affiliations and organizations and essentially seals, right? But there are different organizations and certifications that exist depending on the type of treatment center you are. So if you're a SUD, substance use disorder treatment center, there's some affiliations and JCO is one big one, or Joint Commission, right? So you can have your seal from the Joint Commission, which shows that you're accredited by them. If you're a sober living facility, there's even some organizations that have certifications for sober living. Mental health, there's a whole host of other seals that you can potentially achieve, certifications and affiliations that you can develop and put those seals on your website to demonstrate topical authority. So that's one way to do that. With a blog page, I think one of the things that we have been doing is kind of putting a little indicator on the blog that says that this blog has been like approved or fact checked or written by someone, again, with those consonants after their name. So like one of the examples I brought up was a page of one of our clients' websites where there's a fact check and approved by above the content that just shows like, this is not just gobbledygook content for people to read, but it's actually been, reviewed by somebody who knows what they're doing.
And I want to jump into the examples that we have, because I think it'll be a really good way to describe for everybody what we're looking at. But before we do, I also want to define EEAT.
Yeah.
So if you could just take it from the top and kind of explain what those letters mean.
Okay.
Starting with the first E, experience.
Yeah. So EEAT, the overview is experience, expertise, authority, and trustworthiness, right? And the first E, experience, if you are under the YMYL category, which we defined earlier as your money or your life, then you really need to focus on this EEAT concept. Experience means just that you have experience, real world experience, having helped others with similar stuff that the potential new client is going through. So if a new client has some depression and maybe bipolar disorder, or has experienced trauma, or has eating disorder or suicidal ideation, whatever they're going through, we want to be able to show them that we have experience helping people like you successfully.
How do you show that experience, and how does that differ from expertise?
So one way is with the people on your staff who may have specialties in that given, focus. So if we're talking mental health and depression, then we have people on staff that are trained in depression and the various treatment modalities for depression. Maybe we have a specialist who focuses on microdosing ketamine as a depression modality. The other one is testimonials, which can be challenging in the treatment space because of HIPAA, right? But with authorization, you can do testimonials. And I think those are strong indicators of that, because someone who has struggled with what you're struggling with and came to this particular treatment center and now is all better, goes a long way toward proving kind of the experience part of EEAT.
Yeah, right on. So experience, and there's expertise is our second E.
Like I was saying about the blog post saying that this has been fact checked by so-and-so, that's the expertise part of it. Credentials, really, it comes down to the people and their credentials. That's really the expertise. People that have gone to school for a long time and have been practicing their craft for multiple years, by definition, sort of have expertise, right?
So experience is kind of people just talking about something that they know about, but expertise is making sure that they know what they are talking about through letters after your name.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The experience part is more maybe the consumers reading a blog post that someone may have written about, like, the 10 things I wish I had known before I entered treatment or something, So I'm resonating now with their experience having gone through this process. And the expertise, is more about the credentials of the people that are going to be helping me when I come to this treatment facility.
Got it. All right. Authority, the A.
So authority is like getting kind of sign-offs from other entities. So in search engine optimization, as an example, one of the things we do is we build collaborative relationships on behalf of our clients with other websites in an effort to develop what we call backlinks, right? And a backlink is simply a link from site A to site B. If site A felt enough about site B to place a link from their site to the other site, then there must be something good on site B. So that's kind of what a backlink does. Garnering backlinks from what we would consider authority sites in the industry, WebMD, just big sites that people have heard of in that space, is one way to show authority. Now, it's beneficial to Google when you talk about your marketing efforts, right? In an effort to build brand visibility, rank higher in search results, have more people find your website, and so on and so forth. But you're also doing it from a B2C perspective, wanting the consumers to see that same level of EEAT so that they feel warm and fuzzy when they come to your website enough to pick up the phone and call you. So the first example I gave of building authority through backlinks and outreach is great for Google and helps your brand to become more visible in search engines. But I think most consumers don't really see what backlinks you have, right? And probably wouldn't help them to feel comfortable picking up the phone. So I think that's where sort of a digital PR push comes in. We have some digital PR offerings, and one is thought leadership, right? So we will take a person associated with a brand and begin to build their level of perceived expertise and authority in the space. And then the brand does well kind of by association, right? So we'll take over their LinkedIn and start building their connections and relationships on LinkedIn. We'll have do outreach and get them guest posting on third-party publications. We'll get them quoted and mentioned in third-party publications. We'll usually aggregate all of that onto a page. So find Dr. So-and-so here, and it'll list all the places where Dr. So-and-so has been mentioned. And so that goes a long way toward the consumer seeing this authority, right? Because, think like Dr. Phil. If someone thinks that so-and-so knows what they're talking about, generally people like to go and work with people that know what they're talking about. So as seen in Psychology Today, as seen on WebMD, kind of a thing. So we call it digital PR or thought leadership, and it helps a great deal. And I have some examples of that I wanted to show too when we start sharing screens.
Well, let's get to the last one. It's T for trustworthiness.
That's sort of like the compliance side of things. I see it like kind of showing that you're compliant, that you have licensing, that you're compliant with HIPAA, JCO, CARF. There's all these acronyms for these organizations. That's the trustworthiness piece. Also having like policies on your website is important. So like a privacy policy, a HIPAA policy, and actually being compliant. So a lot of people are not compliant, but they don't know they're not compliant. And so an example is if there's a contact form on your website, I'd say 80% of the available contact forms for websites are not HIPAA compliant. They may offer a HIPAA compliant version of their form, but it's generally an upcharge to get their HIPAA compliant, so that it's encrypted when it gets sent and stuff. So a lot of WordPress sites out there, a lot of agencies build sites in WordPress, but a lot of the plugins that are available to create forms on your website, and not just contact form, but VOB, verification of benefit forms and so forth. You're entering, patient data into those forms and hitting send. And if that's not encrypted, ultimately it's not compliant with HIPAA. So even working with a third-party agency like us can be a violation of HIPAA, right? If there's not a BAA signed, right, which is a legal form. I'm not an attorney. I'm not offering legal advice, but a business associate agreement is a document that I often sign at the request of treatment centers that allows me and my team to look at their CRM, for example, or their EMR, for example, and maintain compliance with HIPAA. So
Yeah.
all of those things go a long way toward trustworthiness, essentially.
Can we put a finer point on this? Are you suggesting that forms need HIPAA compliance, and likely most people's forms are not HIPAA compliant? And if that's true, those are potential flags for Google to maybe not list you as high or give you as much topical authority? Or is that maybe overstating the
I didn't
impact?
take it that far. That's an interesting thought, but I didn't. It's probably a really good thought, actually. Google indexes every page of your website. They see your forms. They know what forms are HIPAA compliant and what forms aren't. I wouldn't be surprised if that actually could potentially impact your rankings, your organic rankings and your organic visibility. If you were not HIPAA compliant and sort of shouting from the rooftops that you weren't because you were using this plugin for this form, which Google knows is not compliant with HIPAA.
Yeah.
So I actually didn't think of that, but that's really, I'm going to go back and do a bit of an audit now on all of our clients' forms. I mean, at the end of the day, it's our client's website, right? But we do reach out to our clients regularly and say, hey, you might want to have us sign a BAA, or, you might want to use this form platform. But I didn't think that there could be some correlation between not being HIPAA compliant unknowingly, right?
Make sure you follow up with us
I
after you
absolutely
run that
will.
audit.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get into the examples. So Eric, please start sharing your screen. And the way that we're going to do this is I'm going to try to be as visually descriptive as possible as you're going through these and pointing them out. And I encourage you to be as well, so that folks who are not watching will be able to see and to feel what we're talking about.
So are you able to see my screen?
I am. So Eric is bringing up a website for. Can you talk us about who this is, Eric?
Sure. So this is one of our clients, Aton Center. Aton Center is a drug and alcohol treatment center in San Diego, California. We've been working with them for several years. We have a great relationship with them. They love us. We love them. And they do really good work. And so this is their homepage. And what I'm going to do is drop to the bottom of their homepage here, specifically to their footer. And in their footer, they've chosen to list several awards, accreditation, certifications, and licensing, which really go a long way toward this concept of EEAT. By the way, you'll notice that there's a map here in the lower right-hand corner. It's a Google map. Just simply having your address on your website actually goes a long way toward EEAT. There's this thing you can do from an SEO perspective, because Google geo-targets an IP address. Back in the day, earlier SEO, and I'm maybe going off on a tangent here, but people used to do get an address at like a UPS store or mailboxes, etc., kind of a thing where they can receive mail. but it's very different than having like an actual brick and mortar address, right? And so if you are a treatment center, assuming you're not telehealth, exclusive telehealth, your address really needs to be on your website somewhere. So all of these things we have, for those who aren't actually looking at the screen, Joint Commission, Better Business Bureau, all of these different things that they're in network with Anthem Blue Cross, which is huge, and Department of Health Services. So basically all of their licensing. And if I'm not mistaken, it may take me a second to find it. No, actually, it won't take me a second to find it. It's right here. Every facility under this brand is licensed, and they actually list their license information and their capacity and what type of service they offer. These are all residential detox. They're licensed and certified. So this is huge for EEAT.
Is this correct? Is EAAT sort of it's respective of the other treatment centers that are in your area, perhaps? So, like, if you are in California, you should likely have the same certifications or licensures on your website as the treatment center across the way.
Not necessarily, because it depends on what that treatment center does, right? Because there's mental health treatment centers, there's detox centers, there's residential treatment centers, there's IOPs, PHPs, some that do telehealth, and there's different types of licensing depending on what your focus is. There's adult versus teen adolescent. So I wouldn't say that just because you're in California that you'd have that I would expect another treatment center to have the same licensing as this one. Does that make sense?
Right on. Okay, but if you have licenses, if you have certifications, awards, affiliations, add those to your site.
Yeah, 100%. Add them to your site and make them navigable. So, meaning adding a page to your site that someone can't actually navigate to is not a good idea. That's creating content just for search engines. And it's actually a violation of Google's sort of quality guidelines to create content that's intended just for search engines and not for people.
Right. A human could get to it, not just robots.txt.
Right. Because again, to do this right, you're purporting, you're demonstrating EEAT not only to search engines but also to consumers, to people.
And then when you're talking about links, would you also recommend, if you're putting your JCO seal on there, your awards, are those also to be linked to something, or?
They should be. Yeah, they should be linked. They should be clickable, and it should redirect to the actual page, which it's having a hard time loading. But these should link to the JCO site.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to make a note to change that. So that people can click on it and improve it. This one should be, here's Legit Script. So this will take you to Legit Script to show you that Aton Center really is Legit Script certified. So I clicked on the Legit Script seal. It opened up a new tab, brought me to the Legit Script website where you see that Aton Center is in fact certified by Legit Script. So yes, they should all be linked. Anthem is linked. A couple of them are not, but the majority of them do appear to be linked.
Right, and Eric, when you went to Aton's homepage, you scroll to the bottom, and this all is in the footer.
It is. Yeah.
Would you recommend this type of content stay in the footer? Can you use it in other places on a homepage or throughout the website? Or
it just kind of depends on the design of the site, look and feel of the site, and we didn't build this site. We manage it now, but we didn't create this site. When we started working with Aton Center, this is the site they had, and all their certifications were down in the footer. I've seen it, up a little bit higher because, truth be told, most people don't really navigate to footers. So you can do things like put like a slider in the middle of your site that sort of slides your seals. There's a bunch of different ways to do it, but this is how they chose to do it. This is a treatment page of their site. So this is their non-12-step programming treatment page. And I brought this up just to show this here, fact check and approved by Dr. Chris McDuffie, ACSW. And that just shows that this content here has been approved and fact-checked by someone with consonants after their name. And so we're doing that more and more now with not only blog posts, but also static content. This ACSW is the National Association of Social Workers. There you go. So that's why I brought that up.
So it starts, this is a services page.
Yeah.
But right at the top, that is the third paragraph, essentially, is who this has been fact-checked by.
Yep.
before you even get into the main headline. So it seems like that was a pretty important placement.
Yep. Yeah, that's a big deal. Again, it's showing that this is just not gobbledygook content that was done by an AI engine. When we do this, it kind of gives us a bit of an uptick on rankings for the specific, well, for the brand as the website as a whole, but also the specific URLs where this exists. So let's see. I bring this up. I'm big on team page because I'm big on the people. And this is, again, Aton's team page. But right at the top, I mean, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5 people at the top line are all doctors, right? So, it kind of gives you this feeling like, okay, I mean, they have some people that know what they're doing. At least they're doctors. And then all these people have these consonants after an ACSW, AMFT, APCC. I don't even know what half of those things are, to be perfectly honest with you, but they look good. For this particular client, we had been involved in a thought leadership campaign for Dr. Leslie Sanders. And so again, it's building her level of kind of perceived expertise and authority in the space. She is a clinical licensed psychologist with over 10 years of experience and has hung her license with Aton Center. She's an employee there, and did things like worked on her LinkedIn page to kind of grow her LinkedIn page and her content, and then built mentions online for her. So here's an example of a Yahoo article. And this is really high, domain rating or domain authority. And here, Dr. Leslie Sanders, program director at Aton Center, is quoted in this particular article on 8 subtle signs you might be considered a snob, according to psychologists. So this is sort of PR work, but it's digital PR. It also helps from an SEO perspective because this is a link to Aton Center. So to use an SEO term, Yahoo.com, which has very high authority, is now passing what we would call link juice to Aton Center's domain, which helps Aton Center's rankings. Here's another one for.
Is link juice the accepted term?
Yeah, it is. It's link juice. It's like love, good stuff. That's the term that we use anyway in the industry and in SEO speak. Here's another one.
Yeah, I love it. I've always called it that too. I never knew where it started or who started it, but it's caught on.
Yeah.
I mean, this relates a lot to the backlinks that we were talking about before. Do you just real briefly? It's kind of on the side of our topic, but link juice. Tell me about link juice.
Yeah, so so again, we talked about backlinks as sort of the online test. I don't know if we called it this, but I like to call it online testimonials, right? Let's say you have a site about, I don't know, you have a site about mental health. It's your little blog that you run on mental health and you post regularly on mental health. And I'm WebMD. And so you write an article, I don't know, like how to stay sober during the holidays. And as the editor at WebMD, I find that article and I think it's good. And I want to share it with my readership. The way that I do that is I place a link from WebMD, from my site, to your blog about mental health. And that link will pass what's called link juice. So it'll take some of my authority, some of WebMD's authority, and pass it through to your website, and it'll help your website to rank a little bit higher. Now, again, that is an oversimplification because it has to be a quality link, it has to be a relevant link. There's a lot of considerations in backlink development, but I would offer that that's a pretty relevant link. I'm WebMD, you're a site about depression or about mental health, so that's very relevant. If my site were about dog food and I placed a link from my dog food site to your mental health site, that would not be, I'd have a hard time finding relevance there, right? And so now that link juice passing probably wouldn't help. I shouldn't say probably. It wouldn't help you and actually might hurt you, right? It might result in you being penalized for web spam, for attempting to manipulate the search results by just building, spammy links, essentially. And there's an HTML tag called nofollow, which I can, if I'm WebMD and I just think that, man, my authority is so great that while I want to show my readership your article, I just am not willing to pass link juice. So what I can do is I can tag this link with the nofollow tag, which tells Google, I want visitors to be able to click through and see that article, but I don't want to pass any link juice. And so I can still share the article, but not give up any of my link juice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Link juice. Anyway, here's another one for GQ, which is, obviously very high authority. Everyone's heard of GQ. And somewhere in here, this article is about the problem with the pursuit of happiness. And Dr. Leslie Sanders at Aton Center was quoted in here somewhere. Yeah, there she is. And the study authors found it wasn't the aspiration. So anyway, she's quoted, and there's a link to Aton Center. That's again passing link juice from GQ.com, which is helping from an SEO perspective, but also helping from a PR and thought leadership perspective. Because man, Leslie Sanders must know what she's talking about if she's being quoted in Yahoo and GQ, right?
Yeah. Right.
More EEAT development.
So my hunch is that doing digital PR is probably, for the top 20% of treatment center marketing programs.
I mean, because
I'm
it's
kind of
not
curious to
inexpensive. Are you
maybe
referring?
it's expensive or it just takes a lot of time or know-how. Is that fair for me to think or no?
Yeah, it's when you're talking about the types of sites that we've looked at, Yahoo and GQ, those aren't inexpensive, and it does take some know-how, or at least knowing someone. If you
Yeah.
happen to know someone on the editorial staff at GQ, you might be able to get it done. But yeah, those are hard to DIY.
Yeah.
I would.
Maybe help us localize this, and maybe we can do a little exercise here of thinking of like 2 or 3 different tiers of treatment centers. One, maybe rural, pretty small, not a lot of marketing budget or resources. It's just people who got into it to help other people, and they're trying their best to reach more patients. For a center like that, how do you go about implementing topical authority or EEAT?
Yeah, that would be more difficult, but you could still do it. You would do it with hopefully good client testimonials, alumni testimonials. You would hope that you'd have good people on staff that you could put on your website. Kind of a trick that you might employ, and hopefully I'm not giving out industry secrets, but so you have your payroll, right? And these are people that are W-2'd and they work for you. But I would offer that not everybody that works for you needs to be on your payroll. And so what I mean by that is you have some full-time employees as a treatment center, assuming you're like a residential treatment center, that are just full-time and they have to be on payroll. Like a chef might be one example, or a clinical director who's there, all the time, Monday through Friday, whatever. And then you have people that maybe show up on Tuesdays and Thursdays to do, sound bath therapy or whatever the different treatment modality is. You might have somebody showing up doing art therapy, and someone else that comes and does your yoga class. And so these are people that don't have to be W-2'd on your salary, on your payroll, but rather they're typically 1099, and you just sort of pay them for the work that they do. So, they work 3 hours or 2 hours or whatever, and you pay them for their time. But because they're affiliated with your brand and they're working with you regularly, you can put them on your website. So a good way to really populate a team page is by having 1099 independent contractors that may only work for you 1 hour a month, but they get to be on your website because you're paying them to do work for you. And so if I were a treatment center that was sort of, bootstrapping and underfunded and just doing the best I could to help people, one of the things I would do is I'd go out and I'd really build an amazing team of talented people in their own right that each do different types of treatment modalities, and I would call them independent contractors and really build a massive team page.
That's an awesome tip.
Yeah. I chose one example of a client that is not doing a good job demonstrating EEAT. So let me preface this. So this is a very new client of ours, and someone who we're about to turn this around for them, but there are some issues. Right off the bat, one of the things I noticed is that this is a place called Strive Forward Recovery. I'm not really sure what they do yet. So are they sober living? Are they residential treatment? Are they IOP? Are they PHP? Is it only telehealth? I'm not sure yet. But I know that they don't have a logo. So first and foremost, they haven't put any money or any thought into building a logo. They just sort of used a font to type Strive Forward Recovery. That's all right. Not that big a deal, but just something my mind goes to is like, you don't even have a logo, right? So now let's try to figure out what they do. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. The other thing I'm noticing as I'm scrolling is all of the photos on their website. It's all stock imagery. So I know that this isn't this isn't no one's taking pictures there like this. So this is all stock imagery. So now I'm thinking, do they even have a facility? Why is it filled with stock imagery? The next thing I see is that they offer detox and stabilization, residential treatment, intensive outpatient, mental health support, and family therapy sessions. Between you and me, they don't do any of that. They're a sober living. So what happened was whoever built their site didn't have a kickoff call evidently, or didn't talk to them about who they were and what they did, and built a very generic treatment center website without really understanding who they were. And so again, we're going to fix all of this, but as of right now, none of this stuff, and by the way, none of this stuff is linked to any inner pages. If I click on explore our programs, let's see what I get. I get a redirect back to the homepage, right?
Gotcha.
So there's some issues with the site. There's some issues with the content on the site, with the photos on the site. And you'll notice that there's not a single seal, whether it's legit script or joint commission or CARF or any kind of affiliation with anything. And you would think that if they did all this amazing stuff, residential treatment, outpatient mental health, that they would have some affiliation, some certification, some licensure, something. They don't have any of that. And then is there a team page under About Us? So there's not even an About Us page. It just drops down to this saying I'm located in San Fernando Valley, comprehensive addiction treatment center, dedicated providing personalized care. Okay, so again, they're sober living. And then our services is another drop down. Why choose us? Another drop down, and then contact us. So yeah, so there's not a team page. I don't know who they're working with. I don't know their team or who their clinical director is, who their program director is. So not a good job at EEAT, right? And if we went live, let's say, God forbid, we started doing Google ads and driving paid traffic to this website, they wouldn't get a single phone call. Even if you put them on recovery.com, I don't think they'd get a single phone call.
That's nice of you to say.
But I like their call to action button on the homepage, because burnt orange is the best converting color on the internet. So at least they did something right. In color theory, don't have a red call to action, right? Because for us humans, it means like pain or stop. It's a horrible converting color. Burnt orange. If you go to Amazon, all calls to action, buy now buttons are burnt orange. So they did something right. But yeah, we're working with them to turn all this around. We're just waiting for access to their website.
One kind of philosophical question, probably as we wrap this up, with EEAT, it was created by Google for the sole purpose of giving Google a framework to measure the quality, the trustworthiness of a site, which would then impact where it gets ranked on the search results.
Right.
For someone starting out today, or even someone who's been around for a long time, but they've never really focused on SEO, as AI content gets spit out there, as AI search slowly, gradually starts taking some percentage points away from regular Google searches, is SEO and doing SEO through EEAT still a viable avenue, still something that a treatment center getting started with today should put resources behind?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't believe the hype that, SEO is dead or dying, and that, AI is taking over. It's true that when you enter a query into Google, you're often presented with the answer you're looking for without having to navigate to a website, right? So you could, in theory, say, well, why do search engine why invest dollars in SEO if it doesn't matter where my site's ranking, if they're getting the answer at the top of the Google search bar? But Google's AI engine, Gemini, I think it's called, is pulling that data from websites, right? From their index of websites, and giving them credit. So if you look hard enough, you can see where the data is coming from. Even with AI, I think it's really important. I think it's not only important to invest in your own SEO, but also, we haven't really talked about, our conversation has been almost exclusive to on-page. There's this concept of off-page. We have talked about link building, but there's third-party directories like recovery.com, right, where people go to find, to help with the search. So instead of me having to do all the research, I can go to one place like recovery.com, where all the information is aggregated, and I can see, multiple different treatment centers in one spot. And I would offer that if you asked Google the question, like, what's the best way to find the best fit treatment center for my son who's struggling with heroin addiction, one of the responses might be to go to a directory site like recovery.com,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't think that traditional digital marketing is really ever going to go away. I think AI just makes it easier at the end of the day.
I did want to say, how can people find you or learn more about Sachs?
Sure. So Sachs Marketing Group is the name of our company. And so sacsmarketinggroup.com is our website.
Well, Eric, thank you so much. This was really great. I'm glad that you jumped in here first.
Yep. Thanks, Andrew.
That's today's episode. Thanks for listening to Recovery Reach. We'll see you next week. And remember, the more people you reach, the more you can help.